Good evening and welcome to the Marshall Hangout with myself, Kerry-anne. Today I'm chatting to one of my favourite people ever. He is the frontman for the band No Friends of Harry, as well as guitarist and more recently Momo. Hi Rob.
Hi, nice to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Rob McLennan chatting to us for the next little while. Thank you so much for joining us and congratulations on everything you've achieved up until now. I think if there was a list of things to do, you've done them twice over. You've just done so many great things with your time on this here planet. Hooray! And I want to talk about a lot of your achievements, but we'll start with your first big musical achievement, which was and is No Friends of Harry. So you started No Friends of Harry quite a long time ago, and you had success with so many huge hits. Time, Competition Rules, and the list goes on. So tell us a little bit about your time with No Friends of Harry. I know that you're still together and you still perform from time to time with members being around the world, which is nothing new with bands that have come through the decades together. But tell us about your No Friends of Harry adventure.
It sort of goes all the way back to the mid-'80s.
Yep.
And the lineup as we know it, we formed in about 1986, but it sort of goes to before that when we were at sort of art college with some people, Ian particularly, and things, and we started playing music around the place, and then around that time, in the mid-'80s, a lot of the immigrants sort of had to go back to England because otherwise they were going to be conscripted into the army. So we ended up with myself and Annette, who was at that time my girlfriend and became my wife, and she had just started drumming a little while earlier, and at one stage, while she was learning to drum, she was asked to play at a band that was put together to play Christmas carols around Christmas, and I think it was in Bedford Centre. And she ended up playing with this guy, Dave, who ended up becoming our bassist. And it was quite funny because he was standing there, and at that particular stage, he was obviously all dressed in black with this long fringe, but because he was more of a new romantic early on, before he became a full-on goth rocker. Anyway, we got chatting after that, and we had like a drink, and I was very impressed about the fact that actually he had his own PA, which was very handy for someone who wants to start up a band. And
that was always the thing, going back in time a little. It wasn't about what you could play or how talented you were, but more about what equipment you could bring to the band and to the rehearsals and the shows, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And he was a DJ at the time, and he was a bassist, and he's like 6'1", and we became best buddies. And before that, I'd been playing with Ian, who was friends with Mark Williams, who became our manager or friend manager. At that time, and he was at art college with me, so it's all sort of weirdly interlinked. But in sort of 1986, I guess, which is when the first sort of album came out and stuff, we sort of got together quite seriously with a lineup of myself, Annette, Dave, and Ian was actually in the army at the time. He was one of the British guys. He's originally from Birmingham. And but he ended up being posted in Pretoria so he could get out for band practice, and we were literally practicing in a garage of my friend, like a proper garage band. And we started looking for places to play, and that was at a stage where there were venues, but alternative venues at that time would only sort of play British punk or rockabilly or post-punk or goth or whatever, or whatever it might be, two-tone, because there weren't really any alternative bands at that particular time. There'd been a pre sort of band rush of punks punk music and really good punk bands, largely coming from Durban and places like that. But there was this lull, and there was nothing happening at that particular time. So we couldn't find any venues to play. We used to play in like Claim Street with, I don't know, some weird venue, and like we'd all sit at a table, and then if anyone came into the club, we'd all rush up to the stage and play. So eventually, we all had this bright idea, I think led by Mark, where we ended up sort of borrowing a flatbed truck from this friend whose garage we stayed in. And we played at the flea market at that time, which was quite a cool place to hang out if you wanted to hang out with like-minded people in the alternative industry. There were these cool black dudes making winkle pickers that everyone used to buy, and otherwise you used to have to go to Mueller's to get your docks or steal them from someone who had them. But we played there, and sort of eventually, long story short, Bonnie heard about it. Someone told him about it, and over the radio asked if we could send him some music. We did, and it sort of everything sort of took off from there, and that's how we were formed. It was like in a very special time. It was in the deepest, darkest time of like apartheid and stuff like that, and we were these sort of people getting flung into the army for a war that we didn't like know what it was even about, and just everything was in lockdown, from the press to everything else, and it was just a crazy time. So I think, that time people had music to look forward to, and these clubs became a place where the people that hung out there became your family and stuff like that. We started playing all of those particular places, and it just grew from there.
You did a lot of your own artwork, and you played so many openings and so many launches, and so many people remember the days of Decadence, Junction, Le Club. Such great memories. So much must have gone down.
Yeah, I mean, it was great actually, because we did everything ourselves. Even I think just we tried to own everything we did, because we didn't really trust the record companies at that particular time, and it came about from, I suppose, our punk roots and stuff like that. But we made our own T-shirts. We sort of did our own posters and stuff like that. But people like the Psycho Reptiles were doing the same thing, and it was like a massive hustle. So we used to go and plaster the Hillbrow and sort of Yeovil and the burgeoning Melville and all of those places, and we had poster wars. We used to stick ours over theirs, and they used to stick over ours.
I did that very thing, and I didn't even have a license, so I'd get my friend to drive me around at night and stick up my band posters under the bridges, and you'd have to leave your flyers at all the music shops and all the clubs, and it was really fun, and it was exciting. These days, you just
cool.
have to do a post and boost it, and that's that. But I think there was a lot of fun.
It was. We always used to be printing them in the middle of the night and then driving around, 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that.
It was the best.
Drinking in the back of a combi
and drawing, because someone had to draw the line.
Well, I was studying at art college at that particular time, and Mark, who became our manager, was in sort of industrial design, so he used to make these makeshift lighting rigs which he used to steal from all the different clubs we played at, and Dave knew all about, like, he had the PA, and he knew all about like that side of things, and I was useless at that. So I did all of the art side. Dave did all of the mixing and making sure the PA was right. Mark did all of the hustling and all of that stuff, and then there was Annette who just like looked after us and herded us as well. And Ian was just this really cool guitarist who was like best mates with Mark, and it was like a really good sort of gang,
Awesome. Family.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I know that you speak to the guys very, very, very often. No Friends of Harry still performs every couple of years. I was lucky enough to DJ and MC your last tour, which was, about 3 years ago now?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Which I think was our first time playing in a very long time. Yeah,
it had been in a long time, and we played some big venues and some small venues, but the small ones are always the best, aren't they? Those dingy rock clubs that kind of just, you immerse yourself into the gig and you really feel like you're part of it, as opposed to being in those bigger venues, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we've, with all of the bands that I've had subsequently, and I mean, the main reason is I guess, when we broke up was because Dave was going overseas and living overseas, and as my mate, we've stayed in touch a lot. But I think sort of what's made things a hell of a lot easier is sort of how we can be in contact with each other, continuously via our phones, without it costing a cent. In those days, if I wanted to speak to Dave, we'd have to plan it a week ahead, and then I'd phone him. And when we were reporting back, when we were playing with No Friends of Harry from back in the day to go on Barney's show and stuff like that, when we were playing with No Friends of Harry there, it was from like a ticky box in London, and it was like you couldn't hear a thing because there's traffic on outside. It was completely mental. So it's facilitated a lot of stuff for us, but. Anyway, I've lost complete track of what my point was.
Isn't that what usually happens when we chat? Yeah. Okay, but we've been chatting about No Friends of Harry and just the good old days and going on tour, plastering bridges and all kinds of crazy stuff. Did you ever think, let's try and do this overseas? I know that you went on tour overseas, but did you ever really give it a big go, or did you have commitments in South Africa and you couldn't?
It was quite interesting because I think there was definitely a point once we came back from doing some really cool gigs over there where it became like a really big sort of point on our career. Is that I think on the one hand we thought that we might need to go there to sort of make our audience larger, if you can, especially because we were playing in a time when we were completely restricted by, as a country and stuff like that. But quite a few South African bands have tried it before and failed miserably. So it would have been a massive decision to make, and it wasn't for fear necessarily of failure, but it was a fear of all of us were working at that particular time. And the reason for that is we had complete control over everything. All our own recordings we paid for up front. We were beholden to nobody for our music. And we didn't want to end up in a position where we'd have to do stuff that we didn't want to do. So commit to bringing out some stuff or playing covers in a covers band or whatever to make a living. The prospect was just horrible to think about. It nearly happened, and I think it was, if it had been another time, it possibly would have happened. Okay. At the same time, there's a cycle to every band, and I think that sort of we were at that point in that cycle where maybe it wasn't the right time, and who knows what would have happened.
And we'll never know. You've all grown, you're all doing your own thing on different corners of our planet. But you've gone on to create phenomenal advertising agencies. You've won countless awards, and you've been into art direction and filmmaking and all sorts of stuff. Tell us a little bit, let's touch on your advertising industry career.
Sort of, I started out by studying fine art at Wits, then I went to Wits Tech to study graphic design. Initially I was deployed to get out of the army, but they kept a place for me, and I loved it. I liked it a lot, and at the same time I was playing in my sort of embryonic bands that at the time. And there came a point where I was finishing studying, and I knew I'd have to find a job. before that, I'd been a bank teller or something ridiculous for 6 months or whatever. And I knew I would either have to go into a job that was in music or a job that was in some form of art or art direction or design or something like that. And I got offered a job at a place called Collett Dickinson Pierce, which was a nice small boutique agency, and I sort of fell into it. I got my first interview, and I got the job, and I absolutely loved it because it's a creative form, much as people don't think it is, but like it's a place where you can express your creativity with someone else's money. Mm-hmm. That's what people do. They pay you to come up with something creative for them, for people to watch. And really great ads are that. And people mustn't think I'm like a complete art wank person. But Michelangelo was an advertiser. The Pope commissioned him to paint the Sistine Chapel and said, I want you to depict this so that it can make the people who come to church and see the glory of God and the creation of mankind. There's nothing different to what we're doing right now, whether it's for a bank or a cell phone.
What an interesting way of putting it, wow. Okay.
Or whether it's a cell phone or whether it's a service or whatever it is, you know. And it can do good. So I think that, if you're using other people's money to do something that's good for their brand, and at the same time you're doing something like uplifting the spirit of a country, then it's a good thing. And sort of, there's a lot of really bad things in advertising, but it's allowed me over sort of 30 years to do a lot of really cool stuff, and at the same time support allows me to stretch another area of like creativity that most people don't get the opportunity to do. Most people, especially musicians, end up doing a job that they possibly don't like to support the fact that they want to perform their music at a time when people aren't paying for it. You know, it's so sad.
It breaks my heart on a daily basis. It's really, really difficult to do. So talking about advertising and advertising agencies, you've started and made super successful and sold off so many advertising agencies and created so many incredible adverts over the years. And is it all Mad Men? That's my question. How close are we to Mad Men, talking about advertising agencies? Because we get to see the finished product, we see the adverts on TV. What goes on behind the scenes?
I mean, there's definitely an aspect of it in the industry, and it does have a reputation for that side of things. But actually, I think, especially in a more responsible era that we live in right now, it's a hell of a lot of hard work, and to come up with a really great product, you really have to give your all to it, just as if you were trying to create a great piece of music. I think the reputation of it being a really fundamental industry is well deserved. Agencies are divided into two sort of distinct areas. The one is the creative side, and creative and strategy side, and the other one is the sort of business side. And there's always been a tussle between it. But advertising people know how to party, but they actually often work all weekend, late into the night. And there's actually quite a high suicide rate in advertising. But people always want the opportunity to create something nice, something great, something good. And that's why they do it, you know.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, congratulations on everything that you've done creatively in advertising, as well as in music. And talking about music, you obviously were in and fronted No Friends of Harry. You were in a band called Doris, and more recently, Momo. Momo is such a great band, such great tunes. I'm stuck on so many, and every week my favorite changes. But tell us about Momo and what's going down there.
Well, what's great about it is we sort of we managed to, after a good 5-6 years, we managed to put out what I think is a really, really cool album at the end of last year, called Dark City, and it was long in the making because I think when you get to this stage, you want it to be right, and we tried many ways of doing it, and we found the right way, and we had a great guy who came and helped us engineer and produce, Justin, and it's basically sort of a mixture of three I don't know, grumpy old men who refuse to sort of compromise in the way that we do stuff, and it's sort of reflected in the music.
Which is such a great thing, and so many artists and bands don't have that luxury. So firstly, hooray, because you all work so well together. Rob, Andrew and Rusty, and it's just so much better when you're able to do it your own way and without compromise.
Yeah, and I think it was a new adventure for all of us, because I think, Andrew's played in like a lot of bands, and so's Rusty, and they're the most amazing rhythm section, and they're both phenomenal musicians. And for the first time, we were in a three-piece, and we also sort of I like to have a concept for where we're going in the thing, and we didn't want to be seen as the sort of this band. If anything, we went harder and sort of more uncompromising in our approach, because we wanted it to feel sort of almost feel the brutality of a place like Johannesburg and growing up in the place like that, but at the same time countered with like the beautiful side of Joburg. And I think that's what we try to capture in the album. And without getting too heavy, there's a lot of fun stuff there. But it's a great band. We write really quickly together, and we continue to write really, really, really great stuff together. And I mean, Andrew's been. We've all known each other since back from the No Friends or Harry days, right from the word go, from the different bands and stuff like that. So it's just a really good place. We've got a little studio at my house, and then we just get down and do it,
Very cool. I'm going to ask you a tricky question, because I just said that every week my favorite song changes. But what is that one song on the new album, Dark City, that means something that really tugs at your heartstrings? Because I know the stories behind the songs, with being your friend. But what is that one song? If your album could only have one song on it, what is that song?
I couldn't choose one song, but the one song that is the hardest for me to sing is probably a song called Lungs. And it's just because I think my mom had sort of cancer and emphysema and stuff at that particular time, and instead of it being like a sad song, it's actually an angry song, because it didn't feel fair, and that's why it's probably the one that's hardest for me to sing. Yeah.
Okay, please check out the album Dark City by Momo. Check them out on all social media platforms and buy the album. It really is quite special. Next, I know you were going to go overseas before this crazy thing came upon us. And I know so many of your favorite artists, Nick Cave, Bauhaus, Joy Division. If you were to create a supergroup that you were in, I mean, there are so many, Hollywood Vampires, Kings of Chaos, the list goes on and on and on. Who would be the players in your supergroup band?
Oh, it would be crazy.
It would be crazy.
Firstly, I wouldn't be the vocalist, but I think the individual people I really respect, you mentioned Nick Cave. I think, I don't know, Patti Smith. I think Dave Navarro is a guitarist. It's like a really, really difficult thing. I like the energy of a lot of, I don't know, I think the yeah. So it's a really difficult one. I could not put a band together with anyone else. I would like Iggy Pop to be in my band. Okay, definitely. And I'd play guitar.
Okay, so you've just said you can't do it, and you just created your supergroup band right there.
Yeah.
Iggy Pop, Dave Navarro, Patti Smith. Nick Cave.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah,
that's a pretty great supergroup. Can I please come to your gig?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome, great supergroup, and the rest of the interview is just fun. We're almost at the end of it now. But I've asked you this question before, and I'm going to ask it again now. If you could listen to one song for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, Jesus, that is a terrible, terrible question. For the moment, for the second, it'll change in 5 seconds, I'll say Killing Moon.
Wow. And I think when I asked you this question a couple of months ago, it was Patti Smith.
Yeah, it would have been, because that's probably my favourite album.
Yeah. But Killing Moon, another great, great song. Great supergroup. I want to come to your shows. I want to hear those renditions of those songs. And I just want to keep on hanging out with you. I love you so much as an artist.
Thank you so much.
As a friend.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So, yeah, just thank you so much for everything. Any special shout-outs before you jam a little song for us?
Just to everyone who's going to come see us when hopefully we play our next live gig where there might be an audience. It'll be good to see you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hopefully at Smoking Kills with Peter Good.
Yay! Awesome. The phenomenal Rob McLennan, Bobby Mack, No Friends of Harry, Doris, Momo. Thank you so much for chatting to us, and I look forward to your jam. I'm Kerry-anne. Please enjoy this song.
Prison has passed in a smoke-filled room, a broken glass. I'll see you soon. When it takes you dark, when your thoughts rush in a rush out town like an empty song. And it takes you back to a different time, faraway towns, raging ride. But a chance still stays like a dying flame, and it holds you there, an empty sun. Love is only our friends move on. All the words they say, a desolate song. Lovers will leave, and friends move on. All the words they say, a desolate song. And you bleed inside with unspoken words, through your broken sea, your visions blur, and mind leaves behind what the heart wants to stay. But change carries on, there's more change on the way. Love is only, and friends move on. All the words they said, the desolate song. Love is only, and friends move on. All the words they said, the desolate song. Those important things lovers will leave, and friends move on. All the words they said, a desolate song. Lovers will leave, and friends move on. All the words they said, a desolate song. There must be much more to life than feeling tired, feeling low. Intentions lost unintentionally. I look for life and find it lacking. Lovers will leave, and friends move on. All the words they said, a desolate song. Lovers will leave, and friends move on. All the words they said, a desolate song.
Ah, yay!
Thank you.
It took some convincing. I'm stoked you decided to play. Thank you so much for that jam.
It's a pleasure.
So cool. I have one last question before you go.
Yes.
If you were the president for one day, what would your message be to the people of South Africa?
I think it would be something corny like live every day like it was your last.
That's not corny at all. Rob McLennan from No Friends of Harry, Guitarist, Momo, and so much more. Congratulations on everything that you've achieved. Please check out his brewery. It is called The Anvil. It has won countless awards, and it is absolutely delicious. You're amazing. You're such a rock star in every single way.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
I'm Kerry-anne, and these are the Marshall Hangout Sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kerry-anne, for everything. Thank you.
Thank you.